So, have fun, boys. We have Flash against Saigon Buffalo, first series of the day.
Thank you very much, your way. And Rebel, my first cast, your first cast of the VCS Winter Split. And I know for you, this is your ideal cast because you're casting your favorite team. You're casting Saigon Buffalo. You're casting your boy Froggy. So I don't want to jump onto anyone else except for Froggy and what you can expect from him. Not going against your standard mid laner, going against Yoshino on the rise.
I think Team Flash has started to build this identity of making sure that Yoshino in the mid lane is going to feel the most comfortable, and this composition that they've designed is helpful for that. But more specifically, we've seen, especially during like SEA games and stuff, that Yoshino really has taken up this mantle of the mid lane for the side of Team Flash. They've been able to incorporate Marcus, and I think the best addition Team Flash has added for this has actually been Ikigai. Ikigai is the #1 player I've seen that's brand new to the VCS this split, that stepped into SEA games. The performances that we saw out of him challenging some of the other top tier junglers was absolutely immaculate. And when I saw the name pop up instead of Dante, I know we have mixed opinions on whether Dante was good or bad across the desk and everybody, but Ikigai to me was an upgrade pretty much from the moment I saw him start in SEA games. So that's really exciting to watch for the side of Team Flash.
Well, for me, I've not seen Ikigai play yet, but as you mentioned, Dante, the previous jungler for Team Flash, coming in as a rookie for the Winter Split, which was only just a couple of months ago, left a lot to be desired in his performances. So I'm really excited to see what Ikigai can pull off, especially against BJ. Another jungler had a fantastic spring split last year. Winter Split, I don't know, something was just missing for BJ. We saw every now and then there was a game where BJ, started to show what he showed in spring, and we're seeing this early gank already to the bottom lane, looking for Arte. Solo picks up the kill with a Sonic Wave, and now it's all on Slater. He's got nowhere to go. It's a double kill for BJ. And Rebel, is BJ back? Maybe too early to answer that question.
It's definitely a little early to answer a question like that, but the important bit was in the previous split, it looked like they had lost what really made BJ such a terrifying force, which was that Saigon's early game planning in the spring split when they were running basically 3 full rookies across their entire roster. That was what made the difference a lot of the time. And then, of course, when we got to the winter split, it seemed like they'd lost a very, very heavy amount of that early game planning that really made BJ such a force to be reckoned with. Right there, you could see that was a pretty well-designed play down towards the bottom side of the map, taking advantage of a little bit of the clearing that had come out from Ikigai, and they were able to get that nice play onto the bottom side. Because, of course, Team Flash, they're rocking a couple of return players from the previous split. Obviously, Marcus and Artie are in the second split. Both of them had their bright spots, and they're still developing, obviously, very much so. Artie actually had a really good SEA games as well. I wanted to give a bunch of props to him, but you can see the punishments there already inside of this matchup is, Taki and Shogun hopefully stepping into a role of being another top bot lane that's going to come out for Saigon Buffalo. I know our desk was mixed on with the performance of Shogun from the previous split, but it's impossible not to put attention onto Taki.
Well, I mean, to go on to Shogun, because this bot lane is something that I do want to talk about. Taki, we all know how good Taki can be as BJ, having another look towards this top side of the map, but I think Marcus should be outside of striking range, plus Ikigai is here, just shadowing his top lane. And Marcus gets a little bit aggressive, and Ikigai not quite needed. But to go back to this point on the bot lane, we've seen how good Taki is. Clearly one of the top 3 supports in the league. But about Shogun, we've not seen him in the winter split. He's had a split off, and Slater also with a split off. I'm really wondering how these two can perform in essentially what is their split back after having some time away from the league.
So Shogun in the previous split had shown us quite a bit of positive play. When Big Koro steps into the lineup, I think Mobby has come to the conclusion, and I think it's a reasonable conclusion about what the purpose of Big Koro is, which is helping with some of the shot calling with this team, because they still have quite a few players that are relatively new, right? BJ is only in now what is the 3rd split of his performance. Froggy's only in like the 5th split of his performance alone. Taki's also in there, and then Shogun, of course, only now in the 2nd split. So they definitely need some additional guidance in some of these situations. So the alternative to this, like you were saying, when it comes to Slater on the bottom side of the map, obviously took the split off for whatever reason, but Slater was up there in terms of ADCs prior to his departure. And so this addition to Team Flash, to me, feels like the linchpin that kind of pulls this whole team together, right? it almost makes them another variant of what happened with Saigon, where Saigon ran back basically Hosmed, who is a superstar top laner, with the rest of these very unknown players. And I know, Yashino, who's very experienced, but you've got Marcus, Ikigai, and Artie, who are three kind of rookies who have shown promise over last splits. They tie it all together with another really good ADC, and hopefully that's going to help them out.
Sonic Wave sadly not going to land from the Lee Sin. However, BJ knocked on the tower. He takes 2 tower shots and he will die. The kill though goes over to Artie, and Shogun gets a kill of his own. Now Froggy, rotating down to the bottom side of the map, is caught out. Zenith's Blade won't snag onto Ikigai, so he's able to run out. Froggy still alive, a 1-for-1 in the bottom lane.
That situation kind of looked like BJ got a little bit greedy with the positioning in an attempt to punish Slater further after the kill went down onto Artie. You can see the return play rise well over the bottom side of the map.
This is really difficult for Shogun, and Taki just sees the Realm Orb coming in. He throws out his Zenith Blade, and then he thinks, you know what? I'm going to run. Sayonara, you're dead. I'm still alive. And it means that Shogun is 1-1-2.
Level 6 Leona, maybe you can throw down like an ultimate, and maybe you could potentially get your ADC out of that situation, since Shogun had both summoners, but at that point, the Realm Warp was going to mean the ultimate demise in the end anyway. I actually really like the eventuality of the play right there, because not only do they pull BJ off of that, but because they know that BJ's out of the play, they have reinforcements on the bottom side. They're able to push out Froggy because Ikigai's in the jungle ready to cut off the position, and then they go for that extended play onto Shogun with the Rise Realm Warp. I can appreciate the communication that was there from Yashino to make sure that they're able to gank into the bottom side. I want to see what happened with BJ, because again, he tries to land the Q, and he gets headbutt underneath the tower, the ignite, and then it really was just a Q. Oh my goodness. I thought for some reason he had stepped back into Slater in an attempt to put some damage in, but that's not true. It was just a nice headbutt coming out from Artie.
Well, we've got more aggression coming through as Saigon Buffalo attempting to invade the red buff, but Yoshino is able to secure the red. Sure, it doesn't go on to Ikigai, but it doesn't go on to BJ either. And we all know the strongest thing that a Rise can get as a mid laner is a red buff.
I think you'd rather it be blue, but you're going to take buffs one way or another. Actually, they're right back on a Marcus. They've just shifted immediately up the top side.
Marcus trying his best to stop the minion wave from crashing on the tower, but it will crash nonetheless. Taki tanking up the tower shot, very well executed by Saigon Buffalo. Shogun has to be careful, otherwise Arte will be jumping on top of him as quick as you like.
We've already jumped into a different area of play that we've seen from Saigon Buffalo, because back in the spring split, a lot of what mandated their really high level of success that got them second place was earlier game planning, and here they've been a lot more aggressive, and it feels like they're making consistent moves across the map. In the previous split, we had talked about how passive they were in the early game, how often it was that other teams were really making plays into them, but in this game, you've seen, BJ already has 4 kill participation. He's found himself multiple ganks across a number of these different lanes. This has been kind of incredible to watch how this team is definitely they're way different than what we saw in the winter split, where it seemed like they didn't have this kind of aggression to be able to put out.
And you talk about the fact that BJ has a 4 kill participation, 100% of all of the kills. But let's not forget Taki as well, 004. He's also been part of all of these plays, making sure that he's moving with BJ. Sure, we've only seen it one time where they moved towards the top side of the map and they got the kill onto Marcus, but he was there nonetheless. And I'm interested to see whether BJ and Taki can continue to roam together. I want to go back to a previous point I mentioned, because I did make a bit of a mistake. I said Shogun didn't play in the winter split. His winter split was his first split. And he came in for a few games, replacing Arietti, or as you would say, Arietti. Thankfully, we don't have to debate on that anymore, because Arietti is not on Saigon Buffalo. But I did think that Shogun had some decent performances. And we get an engage on the top side of the map. Marcus will be able to survive.
Goodness gracious, though. BJ just continues to lathe on the pressure in this earlier stage of the game. This is so reminiscent of when he was like a first incoming rookie, and we got to see the look at basically what was like the Udi or Hecarim meta, where this was pretty standard of just like constantly moving into lanes, using Predator and just walking in, or whatever the situation might have been, to be able to get on top of others with like the Chem Tank when it first came out and that kind of thing. That was like BJ's bread and butter meta. Like, he looked so good during that, which is why in the last split, I think that's what confused me the most, was like when the meta swapped, all of a sudden BJ just didn't have the same performance. But here he's doing it on Lee Sin.
all of the crowd control thrown down onto Ikigai. He wanted to get a blue buff, but instead he will just get death. Super Mega Death Rocket from the bottom lane. And Taki has fallen. Arte's low, good kick. Trying to knock up onto Yoshino as well, as Hazmed is on the hunt, but he can't snip, and cut Arte down. BJ showing up. Arte still alive. Headbutt pulverizer to do. Stops the Froggy engage, but the Crescent Strike will find 2 kills. And overall, it is a 3 kills for 2 with Saigon Buffalo coming out on top, courtesy of Froggy's roam from the mid lane.
You can really appreciate the difference of draft and the difference of playstyle from Saigon. They're so much more willing to skirmish in the earlier stage of the game, which again, like I said, this is far more reminiscent of what we saw in spring from the last season than what we saw in winter from the team. And especially because, how much we expected them to be able to accomplish after getting second in a split. This is really promising. I know we're only in the first game, so it's super upsetting. This was Ikigai going a little bit too far. Obviously, 3 members here from Flash being able to pinch them in was kind of crazy. The kick from BJ, though. How about the kick from BJ putting all 3 members together? Heck, if Hazmed finds Artie right there with that last auto attack, this play becomes completely disastrous. I mean, they already lose 3 full members just because of the play alone. But if you end up getting a kill onto Hazmed as well, this is just a completely chalked situation from the side of Team Flash. They have to figure out a way to really stop the onslaught that BJ is bringing right now, because they do eventually get like the Rise that's going to be able to handle shorter range at least a little bit. Marcus is going to have damage for the later game as well, so hopefully they're able to get into that position for themselves.
Well, there's a Realm Orb coming up, and Hazme, can he get the kill onto Marcus quickly enough? No, he cannot. Yoshino will pick up the kill, missed one of the needlework stacks, and as a result, Marcus able to stay alive. But this is why we love the VCS Rebel. It doesn't matter what kind of meta we're in. Solar Flare being dropped down onto the bottom lane, but no extra aggression being shown by Taki, and they don't get the cleanse from Slade either. But it doesn't matter what meta we are in. We're always going to get Alistair Leona. We're always going to get jungles roaming. We're always going to get skirmishes. And Slade and Arte being forced away from their tower, but Ikigai trying to shadow, get spotted out by a ward. And Saigon Buffalo will have to back out of the play and just let the minions crash in and let Slater pick up the farm.
They're leaning a little bit too far into this. This is really kind of worrisome because Rise is shifting for blue buff or just to help cover the rest of the jungle, and no one is here to cover the mid lane, so that's going to be a couple of plates dropped onto Froggy. They were trying to, I think, break the bottom tower, but this actually ends up probably being more valuable, just because if you don't break bottom tower, I know you're not getting the gold necessarily into the Jinx, but you are putting it into your Diana, which is for more skirmish power. Marcus actually catches out BJ on the red buff.
BJ being so incredibly aggressive, almost caught out by Marcus, but able to stay alive. Now we've got a 2v3, but BJ and Hazmed making their way down. Super Mega Death Rocket chips onto the health bar of Yoshino, but he's still trying to turn this around. Taki, BJ, Froggy, solo, but Hazmed is a full health, and Yoshino will be able to get the shutdown onto BJ, which makes the overall play a 1-for-1. And once again, it's Yoshino who gets the red buff. He really likes this red buff.
If only he were on a champion that uses it just a little bit better, because it would be incredibly mean to have this again and again on your mid laner when this actually comes about. It's actually astonishing the difference of performance that we see from Yoshino today. I know we've talked quite a bit about Saigon because of the 15 kills in only 13 minutes, and a lot of that being off the pressure that they've put. But Yoshino today has already shown so much better propensity out of the mid lane, especially on the comfortable Rise pick, because that is at least a champion that in the old school was a top laner. But the fact that Yoshino's been able to have the pressure that he has, he's moved out of mid lane effectively alongside what the Diana has been for some of the skirmishing, but the ultimates have been there as well to help cover the wings. This was another situation where he helps cover to make sure that like the interior of this play doesn't go completely wrong, and then he's able to clean up on the backside of this. There's 3 members with low health. Yoshino is able to find a nice flash kill onto BJ. That helps turn the tide of that, because it was just a 1-for-1 and they don't have the health to completely retake in that situation because the reinforce was there from the rest of his team.
I don't know if it was calculated or sheer luck from Yoshino. Knowing Yoshino, it was probably calculated, but he actually tanked the Super Mega Death Rocket, which prevented Ikigai from dying. But now the Solar Flare has been dropped down, and oh dear, Yoshino, just as I start to praise him, he gets caught out and he gives a whole bunch of gold away to Saigon Buffalo.
One big problem I think that's held right now from the side of Team Flash is that Slater can't move very effectively. When you're playing against a Jinx, she's going to have the wave clear control up against the lower kind of range and a lower wave clear ADC like the Kai'Sa that Slater's, he's gone back to time and time again. I know Yulwei always has things to say about this particular pick, but I think it's caused quite a bit of strife on the bottom side of the map.
Well, final tower shot takes Taki super low, but so is Arte as well. They don't burn any of the summoners from Slayer, and I do want to touch on this mid lane right now. Yoshino against Froggy, because... Actually, no, never mind. It's the VCS. I don't have time to talk about narratives, do I? Because we've got more aggression. Now it's in the top lane. Crescent Strike. Froggy with a roam. Picks up the kill, and deservedly so.
Very, very effective usage of what is the roaming power off the back of Yoshino going down in this middle lane. It means that a push out gets to come through from Froggy. They were able to pick up the entire mid tower off the back of a second play, and then the roam to top to be able to help supporting Hosmed. Again, when you think back, I can't keep mentioning this enough because it's worthwhile talking about, because Saigon, they looked like they were lost in the previous split without a way of actually winning a game, but this was how they found all of their success, was out of their mid jungle positions.
Good solar flare. Shogun flashing away. Now can potentially turn back some damage onto Yoshino. And Ikigai Taki so low. But the final overload will not land onto Taki. And Taki will survive. But a lot of minions denied away from Shogun. And a tower picked up by the side of Team Flash. Not the first tower of the game. That goes to the side of Saigon Buffalo.
Yeah, they were able to force into it. Mid lane and top lane towers both taken down by Saigon in exchange for a bit of movement on the bottom side. So we see trades of blows back and forth between the two teams. I think eventually this game gets to a point where Jinx is going to be ridiculously valuable for a team fight, and they've got good ways of engaging from a distance, right? Like Diana having 4 kills and 0 deaths at this point for Froggy makes it so menacing that if you stand 2-3 members together, that all of a sudden they just get completely ripped apart by this Diana burst. You throw that in with Gwen, who's going to be able to contribute to that team fight, and then you throw a BJ kick in, you throw anything from Taki into the CC. It just means that there's a meat grinder that Shogun gets to completely add additional blades to all over again for against Team Flash. So for Team Flash, I feel like the person that should really be putting focus into was actually Marcus most of this game, because that's how you pressure down Froggy to make sure he can't jump in. That's how you pressure down Shogun to make sure he can't walk forward in a fight, add additional blades to the rest of the meat grinder that this team's put together. But unfortunately, he's kind of been the deficit. He's got 3 deaths at this point. He's leading a bit of CS over top of Hosmed, which is rather nice, but not until 3 items will Marcus really start to have a massive impact on the map. It's a question of, can Saigon get enough done by then, but it seems like at this point, the pace that they're playing at, they should be able to get more done.
Well, Marcus is just being run down by Froggy. Froggy gives a little thumbs up and a super mega death rocket just to cause some fireworks to celebrate Marcus's death on the top side. That will land onto Ikigai. Any further aggression? No, but the Rift Herald has been dropped down, and this could be the first inner tower of the game falling. However, you can see on the mini-map on the bottom right of your screen, Yoshino making his way up, and Saigon Buffalo are respecting this.
And it's a very kind of individualistic pick that's actually really making this game difficult, I think, for the side of Team Flash. I'm going to ignore this because we have another red buff potential take and more of a fight.
Well, Shogun caught out. No red buff for Yoshino this time. Yoshino looks to Taki, but he sees that there's a blast cone. He could have flashed to the same side of the blast cone as Taki, but maybe a little bit too much investment to kill a support. Instead, they turn their attention towards BJ. Now Yoshino flashes, locks down BJ with a rune prison. BJ tries to turn his attention to Slayer, but will not have the damage. And BJ will fall. Ikigai snagging onto Taki. Oh, Yoshino is playing this so well as well. And it's just another kill for Team Flash. Saigon Buffalo, after making that aggressive play in the mid lane, they just stay too long and they disrespect the rotation from Yoshino. They disrespect the power that Team Flash have, and they're punished for it.
It was 3 full members from Saigon Buffalo were standing on top of Vision over the course of that last minute of play that caused them all to go down individually to Team Flash. You think at some point a full retreat would have just been called and they would have gone for a full back timing. So yeah, maybe one of them get punished, but eventually that's not the case. But 2 members straight between BJ and Taki both just got run down because they were standing on ward and didn't even realize it, which is kind of just sloppy play from Saigon Buffalo, not being able to set up the vision control on their top side well enough to be able to kind of entrench the way that they wanted to. Hosmed did get an opening on bottom side, but unfortunately he's not quite strong enough on the Gwen to be able to just walk up to the bottom tower and start throwing shots into it. So instead it's just a couple of waves that he gets to catch and a couple of kills into the side of Team Flash, who are making this a really competitive game despite a lot of what happened in the earlier phases that went well for Saigon.
Arte headbutts into the wall, pulverizes to stop the dash away. To be fair, Marcus did almost die. Does not matter. The kill still goes the way of Team Flash as we now get aggression. Sonic Wave and the Death Rocket do not land onto Slayer, who's able to flash over the wall and then walk his way out to safety. Now, I do want to touch on this mid lane because hopefully we should get a little bit of a lull state for a bit of a time, because I want to touch on Froggy and Yoshino. Yoshino coming in as a top laner. He's won the VCS previously with Team Flash, but his winter split was not great. Okay, it wasn't great for Team Flash. Yoshino played well at the start, but then things looked iffy. He also role swapped it to mid at one point, I believe, for a series against Team Secret, and he played terribly. So if he had told me at the start of the day that Yoshino would be smurfing in the mid lane against Saigon Buffalo, I would have told you that you were absolutely out of your mind.
I think if you had walked into today and you said that our mid laners at this point, at 20 minutes, we're going to combine for 10 kills, 4 assists, and only 2 deaths, I think that would have actually been miraculous. The fact that Yoshino's been able to have an impact, the fact that like Froggy's staying consistent in CS, but also having a pretty massive impact on this melee type, like skirmish heavy like mid laner, these two have had a pretty massive flow, a sway over what happens in this game, which is pretty big to think about. Eventually, this is going to grow even bigger because again, when you get to full-on team fights, Yoshino is going to be going for a lot tankier of a Rise build, so it's going to be consistent damage and it's going to be hard to bring him down, but it's not that same kind of one-to-one burst that's going to be able to bring down a bunch of members. That's where Marcus and then eventually Slater is going to be able to step in for a bit more of assistance in that regard. And on the other side, of course, the immediate burst from Saigon I talked about being the start off so that Shogun can do the rest of the damage inside of a team fight, being able to get him into the right position. The two mid laners, like you said, I don't know that it would have been easy to call either of these two a top 4 mid laner to begin this split. I think it would have been really difficult to stomach that fact for anybody that watched the previous one, but they're playing really well today.
Yeah, especially when you've got the likes of Glory, Blazes, Yado, Kati in the league. I mean, where do you put Yoshino and Froggy relative to that? Yes, we've seen good splits from Froggy, and I actually want to touch on Froggy a little bit more because, you know, you're Froggy's #1 fan. I think there's no denying that whatsoever, Rebel. And I was a little bit harsh on Froggy last split, and I think that was reasonable. But we had seen games from Froggy when Saigon Buffalo play around the mid lane, and instead of demanding Froggy to always rotate to side lanes, Froggy is able to do well, and Froggy is able to keep up his CS. And now Saigon Buffalo looking towards this Baron as well. We'll see whether Team Flash can contest his teleport coming through, and the Baron is down to under 2,000 health. Taki just buying time, and the Baron has been secured. But now the fight will begin. And will the fight be secured by Saigon Buffalo as well? Ikigai aligning the wind becomes lightning onto Taki as the empowered shock blast does not find anyone. Right. Froggy sitting on the side waiting to go in, but he is denied the engage by Arte. Ikigai now looking towards Taki, dropping down the damage. Killer instinct comes through as eventually Froggy finds his way in and will be able to get the kill onto Marcus. Crescent Guard dropped down, trying to get on top of BJ, who's already on half HP, but Shogun is just a free firing into the back line. Goes the BJ, but what can Yoshino do? The spell flux coming in absolutely massive, but it's a 2v1, and Yoshino will not be able to do much. It will be the side of Saigon Buffalo coming out on top. 5 kills for 3, and 2 members still with the Baron buff available.
The very quick Baron call was very decisive from the side of Saigon Buffalo, which starts off this entire play in such a meaningful way, because no matter what the situation, Baron buff has gone over to this team. If they get 3-4 members out, they're completely okay with this. But Saigon, even after the play is developed, is still thinking of a way of how do we turn this into our advantage. Something that, again, we don't often get to see is their improvisation. It doesn't come up that much because oftentimes we think of this as a team that prepares really well, but they don't have that kind of bone in their system. But here we see a good amount of that, especially Froggy on the right side flank. They really try to combine the Leona ultimate with everything. If they land that onto 5 members, this fight just goes completely awry. But Froggy still finds an entrance, is able to bring down Marcus in the midst of this play, and it kind of sets up this 3-on-3 where you've got BJ and you've got Hosmed, both of whom are very good in the melee, especially in a choke point like this against Slater and against Yoshino. And it also allows Shogun to work his way up a little bit. They put so much focus into bringing down Jinx. Again, you don't realize the meat grinder that's sitting in front of you between the Lee Sin and the Gwen. So it's a team fight that I think ultimately the side of Team Flash found the right members, but they didn't find them anywhere near fast enough because there's so many threats on Saigon's side.
Pinch me, Rebel. I think I'm dreaming. I'm seeing clean play from the VCS. Saigon Buffalo and Team Flash, 2 of the teams we weren't expecting to do too well. 2 of the teams who underperformed in the winter split, looking absolutely fantastic. And a really good fight. One where there's so many little micro decisions that have been made, and maybe you don't make one micro decision and the fight swings the other way. 25 minutes into the game, a 3k goal lead for Saigon Buffalo, and they still have the Baron empowerment available. They can still push on in this bottom lane. BJ looking for a flank, looking for a potential play, but Saigon Buffalo will just siege for now.
Ooh. I will know, first off, it's only about a 3,000 gold advantage for Saigon. At 25 minutes, it's not the most impactful in the entire world. Second item is completed for Marcus. We're getting into third item territory. And even bigger is we have third item territory for Slater, who's gone for more of the AP Kaiser with the Naster's Tooth for the upgrade, as well as the Crown of the Shattered Queen, which makes it so that this, like the Siege Engine Kaiser, the one that a lot of people probably recognize more from ARAM than from standard games, really does come online. You can see W after W, you throw it into the enemy team. It's like an AP version of the Jace. So that means that they could chip down some of the health bars, especially a Froggy before the fight starts off, but also a Bean J of Hosmet if they're able to find him, so that you can't throw all these members into the enemy team. You can see the impact that it's had. Slater really started to come into the damage again. Once Marcus gets there, all of a sudden the poke from his team does start to mount up in pretty significant way, and that's going to force Saigon to make very aggressive and immediate moves to find an engagement against this squad before anything really bad happens, or before their health bars are ticked too far down to where they can't find that engagement they're looking for.
Now, I want to talk about the overall state of the game, because we had a lot of the tiers being picked up from members of Team Flash. They are all completed. They are all upgraded into their relevant items. Previous fight, Froggy dropping off from 10 stacks on the I was going to say Morellonomicon. Why would I be saying that? On the Medjay Soul Stealer, down to 6. So I want to talk about these upcoming fights, because we heard from the analyst there talking at the start about how Team Flash have a relatively low range composition because of this Kaiser and the Rise. So how do they want to start fights? What is the win condition for them to be able to get a successful fight?
I think their job really is not ever to take a full-on engagement. If they start taking full-on engagements before they've been able to land any poke, all of a sudden you have the risk of not only BJ being able to kick, but also you have the Diana ultimate being able to tear you up. Hosmet's ultimate, again, I called this a meat grinder for a reason. And it's because every champion that goes in on top of this Team Flash squad can do some really significant damage.
Well, Solar Flare dropped down on top of Yoshino, and he is going nowhere. It's a free kill for Saigon Buffalo. They get the inner tower. And now they keep on pushing forward in the top lane. Arte, Slater, Ikigai, what can you do? Can you find an engage? Because Marcus has been split pushing in the bottom lane, and he's going to have to back. But by the time he returns, the inhibitor will be all but gone. Team Flash will not be able to force a fight. They are just 3 members. Arte a little bit further away. Baron up in under a minute. And hope is starting to dwindle from Team Flash. And now Saigon Buffalo might be looking for a little sneaky Deathbrush play as well.
Yeah, it's significantly harder to play this Team Flash composition out as the game goes on because they don't have the engage. They're the ones that have to land the poke ahead of time. But because Saigon's got this big gold advantage and they've got so much control on the map, it's so much harder to kind of like dice out vision control to be able to capture control of one area of the map without Saigon being able to contest it in a significant way. Taki, this is the second time, man. Why are we backing on vision?
Oh, poor old Taki. I think he's been watching a bit of my own Leona solo queue with that. But this is really important because Baron's up in 10 seconds time and Saigon Buffalo only have 4 members alive.
They do. Not to mention, they didn't really have this massive Baron setup. They had vision in the opposing jungle, and they do have this one ward in the pit. But the ability to walk in blindly against this Team Flash composition, who have a bunch of poke to be able to work with, does still make this difficult for Saigon. They're down multiple members. BJ walks right past Artie.
And Arte now being engaged on, and it's enough to stop Team Flash from securing the Baron. And Baron will reset. Taki up in a few seconds' time. Look at Marcus, looking for the flank. But in goes BJ, and Arte is already down. Marcus still waiting patiently, waiting for the perfect opportunity to go in. But the fires are occurring, and Marcus is going to be so late to this play. In goes BJ once again, gets the kill onto Ikigai. They look for Yoshino. Yoshino falls. Slater falls as well. And Marcus was waiting for the flank that never showed up. Marcus now on the back foot. Froggy and Taki looking to run him down. Solar Flare will be available, but the Shield of Daybreak means it's a free setup onto the top laner of Team Flash, and it will be the kill, it will be the ace, and it will be Saigon Buffalo onto the Nexus Towers of Team Flash. A 30-minute game. Saigon Buffalo always looked to be in control. They had a few blips, but it was a calm and collected win at the end.
I gotta be honest, yesterday we had a lot of games where it felt like, things didn't go right necessarily for any individual team. We had a situation in which all 4 teams felt like they had improvements to make. Saigon and Team Flash actually both performed above what I expected for them today. Team Flash is projected